granniopteryx, she knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Well, I have some very respectful and intelligent subscribers who have had a very strong difference of opinion with me about my support of Ukraine against Russia. Needless to say, they're supporting Russia against Ukraine. And they come up with all sorts of good reasons to think Ukraine needed a walloping from Russia. I, on the other hand, think that I have some very good reasons for wishing that Ukraine will prevail. So anyway, that's where I am. And I know this is going to irritate some of my Russian supporting subscribers. However, I, as you may have noticed, generally speaking, don't hold back on my opinions. And on this occasion, I think it's slightly amusing and it's very sad. It's the president of Belarus, which has a border about 1,500 kilometre border with Ukraine, and managed to stay more or less neutral, even though many people refer to Belarus as just a Russian proxy. But he managed to keep the war off his territory, and for that you have to give Lukashenko some respect. He's considered a horrible dictator by many people, but he has kept the war out of Belarus. He made these comments in an interview, and I find them very interesting, especially this opening paragraph, which packs in a whole lot of meaning. So I'll read it to you. If Vladimir Alexandrovich was offended, I apologise to him for those words. Maybe I shouldn't have said them, given that he's still at war. Moreover, he perfectly understands that from Belarus, and especially from me personally, no military actions should be expected. All right, I'm going to unpack that, and I'm going to do it back to front. First of all, he is saying that his country is and remains neutral. So he's saying he's not going to let Putin attack from his borders, and he is not going to offer any support for the Russian cause. That's what he's saying here, although he's not going to, obviously he's not going to support Ukraine either. And then he apologises for the insults he hurled at Zelensky. He called him a puppet. He said he was inexperienced. He referred to him as a poor leader and a clown, and that sort of thing. What do we have here? Young, non-military, cannon fodder. Yeah, that sort of thing. So he's rescinding them and at the same time acknowledging that Zelensky is and his country, Ukraine, is embattled. So that's sympathetic. What really hit me was the way he referred to President Zelensky. Those of you in the West who are not familiar with the Eastern Slavic custom of using names and patronymics might not see the significance of this. So Zelensky, President Zelensky, is how we refer to him, Vladimir Zelensky. That is his first name and his family name. But in the East Slavic custom, you use the first name and the name of the father, which is, that's the patronymic. So Vladimir Alexandrovich means Vladimir, Vich means son of Alexander. That's how he's referring to him. Now, if you've read as much Russian literature as I have, you will realise that the name patronymic pattern is used in two opposite situations. One of them is a situation when you're talking about a member of your family, somebody you're familiar with, or somebody you respect, maybe a boss that you are familiar with. So if you were like a professor of Russian literature and you were quoting somebody who was a bigger professor of Russian literature than you, and his name was Ivan Ivanovich Pavlov, and you didn't know him, you would refer to him as Professor Pavlov. You would refer to him as Ivan Ivanovich if he was somebody you knew and respected. You'd had some sort of interaction with. The other way, of course, is disparaging. If you are important and you're referring to a worm that you don't respect, you might dismissively refer to him by his name and patronymic, but that would be in a different tone of voice. You understand, vocal tone is quite important there. The fact that Lukashenko is referring to President Zelensky as Vladimir Alexandrovich implies that there is some intimacy of some sort between them, either a friendly intimacy or the intimacy of some sort of respect. And now he has referred to Zelensky by his patronymic before, but I'm not entirely sure that it was in that respectful way. So it seems to me that he is mending fences here, and the possibility is that he can see that Putin is in so much trouble that it might be possible that Russia isn't going to come out of this very well at all. Apparently they're losing about 30,000 soldiers a month to the Ukrainian drones and various other forms of unconventional warfare. Now, it's very interesting because when Ukraine was first beleaguered, they were getting weapons from anywhere they could. And the idea, which was constantly spoken about, was that Ukraine would have to stop fighting when the Americans turned off the tap. Well, it looks like they pulled themselves out of that particular quagmire now. They're making their own weapons, and they are very effective. They've come up with all sorts of drone warfare now, which has changed the face of warfare permanently. The difference in warfare now to how it was before, when was it, February 22, is absolutely, future historians are going to look back on this as a turning point that absolutely changed the world. And, of course, Lukashenko can see that. And he's preparing for the time when Russia might have to give way. I think that's what's going on. He also knows that if, for any reason, Ukraine attacked Belarus the same way it's attacking Russia, Belarus is completely sunk. They don't have the means to protect themselves against this sort of warfare. Very few people do. Anyway, I think this is a bellwether here. Lukashenko is definitely distancing himself, even if it's just slightly, from Putin's side. He is acknowledging, I think possibly he knows more about the Russian situation than we do. He is definitely re-establishing absolute neutrality, because he is now as frightened of Ukraine as he is of Russia. And that's a big difference. It's both amusing watching him wiggle out of his previous bombastic attitude towards Ukraine, and now the change. It's both funny and sad, of course. And it's sad for what's going on in Russia too. I saw in one channel I'm following that the Konstantin was pointing out that the economist in charge of the Russian banking system, do you know, I've forgotten her name just a bit. She a brilliant financial expert. Just a minute. Yes, it's Elvira Nabulina. And she has done a remarkable job of keeping Russian finances stable throughout this awful time that they've been experiencing. He said she'd disappeared. For the past 2 weeks, nobody's heard from her. We don't know what's going on, but perhaps Lukashenko knows what's going on, and it might be down to Russia's financial situation. All right, well, yeah, that's my comment on Ukraine and what might be happening there that we don't know about just yet. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.